Wow, is the infamously non-apologetic Naughty Dog apologizing for something? And it seems to be the case for the Stellar Blade fan art that they posted recently, which caused a bit of controversy with the fan base of Stellar Blade, who ridiculed it and pointed it out as the most ridiculous fan art because it de-beautified and took all the elements that we love from Stellar Blade and Eve and changed it more into the Naughty Dog modern art design of how they masculinize and transform a lot of these female elements and make them disparate and different from what we see traditionally from video gaming. And I think that's what people saw with this Naughty Dog fan art of Stellar Blade's Eve, and I think that description in comparison to the original design of Eve was so dramatically different than what we all expected to see from Shift Up, the developer of Stellar Blade, and all the content they create, that we had an uproar online where people were ridiculing the fan art, calling it kind of the Naughty Dogification of Shift Up, the developer of Stellar Blade, and how they would perceive Eve if they had Stellar Blade as their own personal IP. And I think it's a very accurate representation. I know the person that is designing and does the art design for a lot of the concept art for the characters for Naughty Dog have to follow strict guidelines because they're under Neil Druckmann. Neil Druckmann has his own preference of designs, what he wants from characters, and I think this is really in line with what Neil Druckmann wants from a lot of the characters that are representative in any content of games that he's putting out there. We saw this with Intergalactic and what they did with the main character there, where we saw this masculinization and kind of stripping away of a lot of these feminine elements within the game itself, and people comparing the design that we see in the game and the actual character actress that plays the character, we actually see a stark difference where people are saying the actual actress looks better in real life rather than her design that we see in the game itself. And I can see that and understand why people are complaining about it, but I think more than anything, we just keep getting this from a lot of Western game developers that are just afraid of having anything that is binary in gender within their game. They try to strive to be gender neutral, and that's what we see with the character design for Intergalactic, and that's what we see with the art that is pushed out there for the Eve Stellar Blade fan art from Naughty Dog. So it got so much backlash that the artist came back and redesigned his own redesign of Eve, and he came out with a new artwork that pointed out the more softer elements that we actually expect to see from Eve, the character of Stellar Blade. And I think this is the thing I would have ever expected from Naughty Dog, and I don't think it's coming from Naughty Dog. I think it's probably coming from the artists themselves, who was trying to do their own spin on Eve, at least in the Naughty Dog style that he's been instructed to put out constantly. And I think he did the redesign in such a way where it was in Naughty Dog's overall design structure. And I think that's what we see with the original one, where it does have those manly features, where it's stripped away of a lot of the feminine elements, where it's made to be ugly. And I think that is just what the art style is at Naughty Dog. This artist definitely has skills to do better, and they kind of showed it out like, oh no, I actually can make a real good artist design. This is not on me, this is just Naughty Dog's version of Eve. Naughty Dog's version of Eve is exactly this, but the artist version is looking like this, and that's why he put out this sort of apology art that he sent to Stellar Blade and the Stellar Blade account, where they put out there saying this is a design from another Korean artist that is at Naughty Dog, that his personal interpretation of Eve is like this. And I think this is what we're getting from the Stellar Blade account. I think the people at Stellar Blade want to support the artist there. It's a Korean artist that's working at Naughty Dog. This is that his original design came with a lot of ridicule and disrespect. I don't think Stellar Blade and Shift Up, the developers, want that for another Korean artist. So I think it makes sense for them to put out their support there. He put out another design because he wants to keep his reputation, and I understand it. I won't put most of the blame or onus on the artist himself. I think the original design is the Naughty Dog type of design. That's what we see from Naughty Dog. It makes ugly masculinized features for a lot of the now female characters, specifically from The Last of Us and Uncharted 4. They drive towards this design once Neil Druckmann took helm of the entire company itself and became the brain trust of the entire Naughty Dog organization, after pushing out some of the geniuses at Naughty Dog like Amy Hennig that worked on Uncharted 1 through 3 and Bruce Staley that worked on and enhanced Last of Us 1 to the state it was in. And I think when we see what Neil Druckmann did himself in The Last of Us 2, we saw the absolute pinnacle of Neil Druckmann, which is a complete failure with The Last of Us 2. And I think seeing that influence pervasive throughout the company, even its artists, you would understand why he came out with his design first, because this is a Naughty Dog design. This is what would Naughty Dog do if they were asked to make a Stellar Blade type of game. It would look like this, just with a smaller chest, probably more manly design or around the waist, probably something like that. I think that is the design that they would stick with, and I think that's the design that we would see. But I think the artist himself kind of is doing a backtracking, trying to say this is my type of design style. This is how I would develop and design Eve, and I think that is the obvious thing. And I think it's a beautiful design. His version is just a quick stencil drawing, I think, or something he put out there. And I think, yeah, this is what we would expect if you're just drawing quickly Eve doing something. And I think that is what we expected when we saw that an artist kind of put out fan art. But ultimately, we got that Naughty Dog influence regardless. And I think some artists, when you work under some sort of perception and view of how art design is supposed to be in an organization, you just fall back on that art design feature. And I think that's what we saw with the artist here, where he just fell back on Naughty Dog's tenets of design, where you're supposed to strip away all the feminine features, masculinize the face, bigger jaws, meaner face, annoying look and countenance. That is the design feature that you see all throughout the modern day Naughty Dog games. Is what you see in Intergalactic that pushed away so much of the fan base, where they're saying, I don't even want to play this game. This main character looks patently ugly and offensive to even look at. And I think that is what we're seeing with a lot of art coming from Naughty Dog. That's coming from the Western games development sphere, where gaming is being made to be a progressive lesson and tool machine, where it's trying to lecture the audience and trying to adjust their standards of what they perceive to be beauty or not beauty. And I think that's what we see with a lot of Naughty Dog games, where they're stuck in this concept of trying to adjust people's perceptions of what is aesthetically pleasing and what is not. And I think that is the thing that is stuck in their mind when they're designing these characters, where they're trying to make a character that is super gender neutral without any identifying features that consist with any gender at all, because they're stuck in this progressive philosophy where gender doesn't even exist. And I think this is what we see with a lot of the character designs from Intergalactic, and that's what we see from a lot of the artists working on the character designs, where they're just instinctively making the character designs in line with Naughty Dog. And I think it all goes back down to Neil Druckmann himself. Neil Druckmann himself is a person that is trying to always placate this invisible modern audience that is in Hollywood, and I think his goal is always to be in Hollywood, and to do that you have to follow these progressive standards and ideals. And I think that's the only thing he's doing right now. He's following these philosophies until they get him to that pinnacle within Hollywood itself, and he has that with the HBO Last of Us show. But I wonder how long that will last if he doesn't change the story with that game. And I think more than anything, people just want him to stay away from Stellar Blade, Shift Up, and everyone else associated with good games in the East. We don't want to see the Neil Druckmannification of gaming, but we might see that with Shift Up, and I think that is a scary thing when we see Neil Druckmann next to an actual real talent like Kim Hyung-tae, who actually knows what the gamers want and tries to placate them. And I think that is the thing people are afraid of the most. We don't want to see Neil Druckmann and the CEO of Shift Up next to each other again. We don't want to see that influence rub off on Korean games or Chinese games or Japanese games. We already saw it rubbing off Japanese games. It's ruining a lot of Japanese games. I'm just hoping that doesn't happen here. We see the differences between two studios. Stellar Blade knows how to make a good character design, and we see Naughty Dog doesn't even know what a character design is anymore. They're just trying to push out their personal politics to the mass gamer player base, and it's just not working. We don't want to play as Vin Diesel from Fast and the Furious. We want to play as something closer to Stellar Blade's Eve, and I think that's what we're getting from a lot of foreign Eastern games that are just not from the Western games development sphere, where they use actual real models and 3D render them in the best possible way, where we get the most aesthetically pleasing features of that character and model. And I think that dedication from Shift Up is what we continually want to see from the gaming industry, and we don't want to see any more Naughty Dog designs that are just there to be about your progressive political outlook that you want to impose on the gamer, rather than making a game fun and nice to look at. But that's just my 2 cents on the situation. I think the Naughty Dog artist, who's just stuck in his ways, he's instinctually going with a Naughty Dog design pattern, and I think that's why we got that ugly design pattern rather than a beautiful one that we would naturally see from an artist trying to make something nice to look at. And it just shows how strong the ideology in Naughty Dog runs so deep, where the artist is just instinctively making ugly characters because that's what all the bosses at Naughty Dog want. So that's what he is doing naturally. And I think that's what we see with a lot of people in the Western games development sphere. It's kind of funny to see him backtrack and trying to apologize and put out something of a higher quality, because he knows what he put out originally was absolutely terrible. And I can't blame him, but I like his new design. It looks nice, it looks pretty, and hopefully we get more designs like this from Naughty Dog, but we know that's an impossibility. Neil Druckmann is terrible at his job, and we can expect nothing less than the worst. Hopefully Stellar Blade stays safe though. That's all I want, but you tell me what you think about the situation. Like, comment, share, subscribe. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.